My wife planned to cheat. While I worked 70-hour weeks to buy her a car, so I served divorce papers and took back every dime. I'm 34 million and work in industrial equipment sales, conveyor belts, packaging machinery, all the glamorous gear that keeps warehouses moving. I've been with my company for 8 years, working my way up from inside sales to regional manager. My wife, Sarah, 31F, is a part-time yoga instructor and occasionally does freelance graphic design when she feels like it. We've been married for 3 years, together for 6. We met at a brewery during trivia night. She was on the team that beat mine because I'm apparently hopeless with 2000s pop culture questions. Who knew? We signed a solid prenup before getting married. After watching too many co-workers get financially ruined in divorce, I wasn't willing to risk it. Sarah was surprisingly cool with it, said she understood the need to protect what we both brought into the marriage. Things were good until recently. Sarah drives a 2019 that's been having transmission problems for months. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to make her wonder if she'd need to call an Uber just to get to work. She'd been hinting about wanting something newer and more reliable. Fair enough. I drive a company truck, so I don't really deal with that anxiety. About 2 months ago, her hints became more direct. She started showing me listings for certified pre-owned Subaru Outbacks. Nothing over the top, about $28,000. Problem was, we didn't have that much cash lying around. We'd been aggressively paying down my student loans and the mortgage. Still, I figured she deserved something dependable. She'd been patient with the financial priorities, and I thought I could cover it by picking up overtime. So I started saying yes to every extra shift. Weekends, late-night calls, covering for coworkers on vacation. The industrial equipment world doesn't sleep. If a packaging line fails at a food plant, it needs fixing immediately, or they lose thousands per hour. For 2 months, I was clocking 65 to 70 hours a week, funneling every extra dollar into what I called the car fund. Sarah seemed supportive about my crazy schedule, saying she appreciated me working so hard for something she wanted. Her best friend, Monica, often came over to keep her company when I was stuck late. Monica's divorced, works at a healthcare startup, and always seemed cool. They'd have wine nights, binge shows, do whatever friends do while I was out fixing barcode scanners. I thought it was nice she had company. Then came the plot twist. Last Tuesday, I wrapped a site visit early. What was supposed to be a 3-hour emergency turned out to be a sensor that just needed cleaning. I was done in 20 minutes and back home by 7:30 instead of the usual 10. From outside, I heard voices in the kitchen, Sarah and Monica chatting. I figured I'd slip in quietly, grab a beer, and surprise them. But then I caught Monica saying something about timing, and Sarah replying that she had to be careful when she made her move. Naturally, I assumed it was work talk or maybe a birthday surprise. Then Sarah said she'd been thinking about it more lately, especially with me working so much overtime, and that maybe it was the perfect chance to see what else was out there. My stomach dropped. Monica agreed, saying Sarah had been bringing this up for weeks, and it was time to stop hesitating. She told Sarah she deserved to explore her options and see if something better suited her. She even offered to help with logistics, since she apparently had connections that could make the whole thing easier. I stood frozen, trying to convince myself I was misunderstanding. But then Sarah admitted she was nervous about the financial consequences. Monica reassured her, saying she could always return to her current situation if the new thing didn't work out, that I'd probably take her back because I'm too nice for my own good. That's when the truth hit me. This wasn't about projects or parties. This was about my wife planning an affair and treating me, her husband, like a safety net. I quietly set the beer back down and slipped outside to my truck. I sat there for 10 minutes, numb, before driving around aimlessly for an hour. When I finally returned, I acted like nothing had happened. Sarah asked how my day was. I told her it was fine, and we went to bed as usual. The next few days felt surreal. Sarah kept dropping subtle hints about needing some space to figure things out. She said she felt like she'd been stuck in the same routine too long. Then she asked if I thought two people could still love each other but also need to explore other connections. Real subtle, right? Friday night, she finally worked up the courage to have the big talk. She told me she'd been reflecting and felt like we'd gotten married too young. We were 28 and 31 at the time, but sure. She said maybe she needed some space to make sure this was truly what she wanted. That she loved me, but wasn't sure she was in love with me anymore. All the classics from the I want to cheat but make it sound noble playlist. Then she suggested staying at Monica's place for a few weeks to gain perspective. According to her, if we were really meant to be, we'd find our way back together. I asked directly if there was someone else. She swore no, of course not, that she'd never do that to me. She claimed she just needed to be alone to figure herself out. Monica had offered her a place to crash and maybe even take a trip together to clear her head. I told her that if that's what she needed, I understood. I'd keep working, keep saving, and give her the space she wanted. What I didn't mention was that I'd already called a divorce lawyer Thursday morning. By Sunday, Sarah had moved out. Took clothes, her laptop, some books, the usual things for a temporary separation. She hugged me at the door, said she hoped we could work it out, that this wasn't the end, just a pause for clarity. Monday morning, I went to the bank and moved all of our savings, including the $12,000 car fund I'd been building, into an account under only my name. Thanks to our prenup, I was fully within my rights. Her name wasn't on my work accounts anyway, and I left the joint checking account alone except for redirecting my direct deposit elsewhere. By Tuesday, the divorce papers were ready. Nothing nasty, just a clean dissolution citing irreconcilable differences. Thanks to the prenup, it was straightforward. We each keep what we brought in, split the house proceeds if sold, no alimony. Wednesday, Sarah texted, asking if I'd had any thoughts about us, whether I was ready to have an honest conversation about fixing things. I told her I'd been thinking a lot and was definitely ready. Could she come by Thursday night? She seemed happy, said she'd been thinking too and was ready to talk about our future. Thursday evening, she showed up with takeout and started talking about how time apart had made her realize how much she missed our life together. How maybe she'd been overthinking. And sometimes you need to step back to appreciate what you have. That's when I handed her the divorce papers. Her face changed instantly, nervous and hopeful, to confused and furious in seconds. She asked if this was a joke, why I was being so dramatic just because she needed some space. I told her I knew exactly what kind of space she was looking for, and had decided to give her all the space she'd ever want, permanently. She demanded to know what I meant. So, I explained that I had overheard her conversation with Monica the previous Tuesday. Not every word, but enough to know she was planning to cheat and expected me to be sitting here like a loyal golden retriever when she was done, exploring. Her face told me everything I needed. She tried to backpedal, saying I misunderstood, that I took it out of context, that she hadn't actually done anything. I said, great. That meant the divorce would be even cleaner. Just two people wanting different things. Then she asked about money. Wanted to know if she could access the savings account to get her own place, or maybe buy a car since she'd be starting over. I told her the savings account was closed, and the money I earned working overtime the past 2 months was now in an account she couldn't touch. because funny enough, I didn't feel like funding her exploration phase anymore. That's when she got really angry, accused me of being controlling, said taking away money she'd counted on was financial abuse. I reminded her that under the prenup, my earnings were mine, and she hadn't contributed a single dollar to the car fund she was banking on for her independence tour. She stormed out around 9 p.m., food in hand. Part of me wonders if I should have confronted her about that overheard conversation first, given her a chance to explain or back out. Maybe I misunderstood, and she really was just going through some kind of quarter-life crisis that had nothing to do with cheating. But honestly, the more I replay it, the more certain I am that I heard exactly what I think I heard. I'm not out to ruin her life or leave her without options. She has her job, she can stay with Monica, and she's an adult who can sort out her own housing and transportation. I just don't see why I should bankroll her journey of self-discovery, especially when that journey involved exploring other people's beds. Still, sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh, if I should have tried harder to work things out. But I'll let you guys tell me what you think. I've got choices to make about what comes next. Well, you all had plenty to say, and by plenty, I mean my inbox blew up like a packaging line in December. The overwhelming response was that I was NTA and should stop doubting myself about what I overheard. A lot of you pointed out that Sarah's reaction to the divorce papers basically confirmed everything. If she were truly innocent, she would have been shocked and heartbroken, not immediately worried about money and asking about access to accounts. That really stuck with me. An innocent person would have been devastated by divorce papers, not busy calculating her finances. Some people suggested I should document things or gather more proof, but honestly, I'm not interested in playing detective. I know what I heard. Her reaction sealed it. I'm not about to stalk her with a camera or dig through phone records. That's not who I am. A few of you warned me that Sarah would eventually come back with tears and promises once she realized I was serious. Turns out Reddit's got some psychic skills because that's exactly what happened. Friday morning, the day after she got the papers, Sarah showed up at my door at 6:30 a.m. I was getting ready for work when she started pounding like she was trying to wake the whole block. She said she wanted to talk, really talk this time. No games, no excuses. She admitted that maybe she'd been thinking about other options, but that the divorce papers made her realize she was just scared of commitment, that she didn't actually want anyone else, that I was the best thing that ever happened to her, and she'd been a fool. I told her I appreciated the honesty, but that ship had sailed. If she'd wanted to work on our marriage, she could have done that before plotting an affair, with Monica coaching her along the way. That's when she got defensive. She claimed Monica had been feeding her doubts, telling her she was settling and deserved to see what else was out there. Said Monica was bitter over her own divorce and projecting onto us. Sarah swore she never would have actually gone through with anything if I hadn't jumped straight to divorce. I asked her, directly, was there a specific someone she had in mind, or was this just a vague window shopping thing? She went quiet for a long moment, then admitted there was a guy from her yoga studio who'd been flirting with her for months. She said nothing had happened, but she had been curious what it would be like, and Monica kept telling her life was short and she shouldn't live with regrets. So, there it was. Not just some general idea of exploring, but an actual target. I thanked her for finally being honest, told her it didn't change a thing. She started crying, begging to try counseling, to not throw away 6 years over one mistake. But here's the point a lot of you made that really sank in. She wasn't sorry for planning to cheat. She was sorry she got caught. If I hadn't overheard that talk with Monica, she would have gone ahead with her plan and expected me to sit here waiting when she was done sampling the merchandise. I told her I'd think about it, mostly to get her out of the house so I could get to work, but my mind was already made up. The other thing that happened over the weekend, thanks to some of your advice, was Sarah trying to dip into our joint checking account. She quickly discovered my direct deposit was gone. She called Saturday morning demanding answers, and I explained that since we were divorcing, it made sense to split our finances entirely. She got upset, said she couldn't live on her yoga income alone, and needed money for basic expenses. I reminded her that according to the prenup, we were each responsible for our own expenses during the separation. She could pick up more hours, take on additional graphic design clients, or find another way to make ends meet. Several of you had warned me she might try to claim she couldn't support herself and push for spousal support, so I was ready for that conversation. Good thing, too, because it came up fast. Monday morning, Monica called me, for the first time since this mess started. She said Sarah was struggling and that maybe I was being too harsh, that yes, Sarah had made a mistake, but she didn't deserve to have her entire life destroyed over it. I asked Monica if she thought I deserved to have my life blown apart over Sarah's mistake. Did she really think I should have quietly bankrolled Sarah's affair while waiting patiently for her to decide whether to keep me or trade me in? Monica went quiet. Then she admitted she hadn't realized I overheard their conversation, and maybe she had given Sarah bad advice. I told her Sarah was a grown adult who made her own choices, and if she was struggling now, she could figure it out herself. I wasn't her safety net anymore. Monica tried to argue that Sarah hadn't actually done anything, that thinking about it and doing it weren't the same. I pointed out that planning and doing were different too, but not by much. If I hadn't overheard them, Sarah would have gone through with it. That ended the conversation pretty quickly. So, Reddit, I'm sticking to the plan. No reconciliation talks, no counseling, no, let's work through this together. I'm moving forward with the divorce and letting Sarah figure out her own life. Some of you asked whether I felt guilty serving her papers right when she claimed she wanted to patch things up. Honestly, she didn't come back out of love. She came back because what she thought she wanted didn't pan out, and I was the safe option. That's not love, that's convenience. Next update will probably come after I hear back from my lawyer about the timeline and next steps. Thanks for all the reality checks. It's been a relief having outside perspectives. Remember how some of you predicted Sarah would escalate when the nice approach failed? Well, buckle up. Monday started off normal enough, or as normal as it gets in this situation. I was catching up on work when HR called me in. Apparently, someone contacted them claiming I was in the middle of a messy divorce and might be emotionally unstable at work. Now, you all know my job, industrial equipment sales. My clients care about conveyor belts and uptime, not my personal drama, but HR has to treat these things seriously. I had to sit through an awkward conversation about whether I needed time off or counseling. I explained I was divorcing. It was being handled through lawyers, and it wasn't affecting my performance. My manager backed me up, pointing out my numbers had actually improved thanks to all the overtime. Still, humiliating. Took me about 30 seconds to figure out exactly who made that call. Tuesday, I got a text from Sarah asking if we could meet to discuss logistics. Against my better judgment, and probably against Reddit's advice, I agreed. I figured we needed to sort out practical things eventually. Big mistake. She showed up looking like she'd been running on caffeine and stress alone. She started out apologetic, said she was sorry about the HR stunt, but she was desperate and didn't know how else to get my attention. I told her going to my workplace was completely out of line and asked what logistics she thought we needed to discuss that couldn't be handled through lawyers. That's when she dropped the bomb. She said she was pregnant. Reddit, Let me save you the suspense. After about 10 minutes of panic and fast math, I realized the timeline didn't work. We hadn't been intimate since before she moved out, barely 3 weeks earlier. Too soon for her to know, too soon for symptoms, too soon for anything. It could have been from much earlier, but I hadn't seen a single sign of pregnancy before. When I pointed this out, she got defensive and claimed she'd been feeling weird for a while, but hadn't wanted to worry me while I was working so much overtime. She said she'd taken a test that morning and it was positive. I asked if she wanted to go to a doctor together to confirm it with an actual test, since this was supposedly life-changing news that would impact everything about our divorce. She said she wasn't ready for that yet, needed time to process, but wanted me to know because it changed everything. She insisted we owed it to our child to try to work things out. I told her we'd definitely need medical confirmation before making any major decisions, and if she was truly pregnant, we'd sort out co-parenting through our lawyers. Her face dropped. I think she expected me to cancel the divorce on the spot and rush back into reconciliation mode. Wednesday, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Turned out it was yoga studio guy, the same one Sarah had admitted she was considering during her exploration phase. He said he had no idea Sarah was married when she'd been flirting with him, and that once he found out he backed off completely. Apparently, Sarah had told him we were separated and getting divorced, but someone later mentioned we were still married when she started showing interest. He wanted to clear the air and let me know he hadn't tried anything once he knew the truth. I told him I appreciated the call and that he hadn't done anything wrong. Sarah had misrepresented the situation, not him, but it confirmed what I'd already suspected. Sarah had been laying the groundwork with him for weeks, maybe months. This wasn't some sudden crisis. It was long-term planning. Thursday, Sarah texted me asking if I'd thought more about the pregnancy and what it meant for us. I replied that I'd be happy to discuss co-parenting once she had medical confirmation. She called me right away, upset that I was being cold about our supposed child. I explained that I wasn't being cold, I was being realistic. If she was truly pregnant, we'd handle it responsibly, but I wasn't about to change everything based on one home test and vague symptoms. She hung up on me. Friday was when things got interesting. I came home from work and found Sarah's car in my driveway, and Sarah sitting on my porch steps. She said she needed to tell me the truth because she couldn't keep living with the lies. So I sat down and listened. Turns out the pregnancy was fake. She admitted she hoped it would force me to reconsider the divorce, but once she realized I was going to demand medical proof, she knew the lie would collapse. Then came the bigger confession. The thing with yoga guy was real, and more involved than she'd admitted. They'd been texting for months, met up for coffee a few times, and she was planning to sleep with him during her trial separation. Monica had been pushing her along, saying she deserved to see what else was out there before settling permanently. But when Sarah finally tried to make a move, yoga guy backed off because he found out she was still married. That's when Sarah realized her whole plan wasn't going to play out the way she imagined. She said seeing the divorce papers was a wake-up call, that she was about to lose the best thing in her life over a dumb fantasy, that she'd been listening to Monica's bad advice and living in some movie script version of reality. She asked if there was any way I could forgive her and start over. I'll be honest, Reddit. Seeing her that broken down was hard. This wasn't the confident woman who asked for space to explore. This was someone who'd realized she wrecked her life for nothing. But as many of you warned me, this was exactly the moment she'd come back with tears and confessions, only after facing real consequences. And I couldn't let guilt make me forget the truth. She was ready to betray me, and she fully expected me to be her backup plan afterward. I told her I appreciated the honesty, but it didn't change the reality. She'd made these choices over months of planning, not in a fleeting moment of weakness. The only reason she was confessing now was because her plan collapsed and she had no safety net. She asked what she was supposed to do now, where she should go, how she was supposed to rebuild her life. I told her those were questions she should have asked before deciding to blow up ours. She left around 9 p.m. and hasn't contacted me since. Monica, however, called me Saturday morning. Sarah had been staying with her and was apparently in a really bad place. Monica wanted to know if I was satisfied with destroying Sarah's life, or if I might consider showing some mercy. I told Monica that Sarah had destroyed her own life, and that I was simply refusing to go down with the ship. I told her if she truly wanted to help Sarah, she should focus on helping her move forward instead of trying to guilt me into saving her. Monica said I was being heartless. I told her I was being practical. That conversation ended quickly. So, Reddit, the divorce is still moving ahead. No more fake pregnancies, no more workplace stunts. And yet, I'm somehow the villain for not stepping into the role of backup husband. Your advice about staying strong and not falling for manipulation has been spot on. It's been tempting to feel guilty, especially seeing Sarah break down, but you guys were right. She's not upset about betraying me. She's upset about living with the consequences of her own decisions. Thanks for keeping me grounded through this, Reddit. Remember how I thought things were calming down? Yeah, that was adorably naive. Once again, you all were disturbingly accurate in predicting Sarah wouldn't go quietly. This week turned into a lesson in how far someone will go when their back's against the wall. It kicked off Monday with a call from my lawyer. Sarah had filed a motion claiming I was hiding assets and asking for temporary spousal support while the divorce was pending. In her filing, she said I'd moved money out of joint accounts and left her unable to support herself. My lawyer wasn't worried. The prenup covers this exactly, and I had records showing the funds came from my overtime pay. But still, it meant more legal fees and delays. Probably the point. Tuesday brought another twist. I got a call from my mortgage company asking about my intentions with the house. Apparently, someone had contacted them claiming to represent both of us in the divorce and inquiring about one spouse assuming full responsibility for the mortgage. That someone wasn't my lawyer. Turns out, Sarah had called them directly, introduced herself as Mrs. Thompson. She never even took my last name, and asked about removing a spouse from the mortgage. She even gave them our case number, which she shouldn't have had access to, and tried to pry for refinancing info. They didn't release anything without authorization, but called me to confirm. I had to explain no, she wasn't authorized, and yes, she was probably trying to see if she could stake a claim to the house despite the prenup. Wednesday is when things got really creative. I came home from work and found my neighbor waiting for me in her yard. She's a retired teacher in her 70s, sharp as ever. She said a young woman had come by earlier asking questions about me. Had I been having loud arguments? Did she see other women at my house? Did I seem controlling or aggressive? The woman introduced herself as a social worker doing a routine domestic check. My neighbor thought it was strange, since she'd never seen anything concerning. She asked for ID and a business card, and the woman got evasive before leaving quickly. From the description, it sounded exactly like Monica. I thanked my neighbor and immediately called my lawyer. He said this could be considered harassment, maybe even worse, but that it might be smarter to document everything and present it as evidence of Sarah's side resorting to desperation tactics if she tried to claim I was being unreasonable. Thursday, I decided to go on offense. I called Monica directly. At first, she played dumb, acted like she had no idea what I was talking about. But when I mentioned my neighbor's description and the social worker act, she got defensive and said she was just trying to help Sarah. I told her impersonating a social worker was potentially illegal, and that contacting my job, my mortgage company, and my neighbors was harassment, plain and simple. If she wanted to help Sarah, she should push her to focus on moving forward instead of sabotaging the process. Monica snapped that I was paranoid, that she hadn't done anything wrong, and Sarah was just trying to understand her options. I pointed out Sarah has a lawyer for that, and sneaking around asking neighbors about domestic violence wasn't a legal strategy. It was desperation. Monica hung up on me. Friday brought the big finale of the week. I was working late, legitimately this time. We had a packaging line emergency at a food processing plant, and I got home around 10 p.m. only to find my front door slightly ajar. Reddit, I've watched enough true crime shows to know you don't just walk into an open house. I called the police from my truck and waited. The officers arrived and did a sweep. No forced entry, nothing missing. At least, nothing obvious. But then I spotted something on the kitchen counter, a set of keys. They were Sarah's keys to the house. She had apparently let herself in, looked around, and left the keys behind. No note, no explanation, just the keys. The officers asked if I wanted to file a report. I said not this time, but asked them to document that Sarah had been inside without permission and had returned her keys. One of the officers asked if this was part of a domestic situation. I gave her the short version. She said they see this kind of thing more often than people realize, that divorce can bring out sides of people no one expects. She recommended changing my locks and setting up a camera for my own protection. Saturday morning, I changed the locks. That afternoon, I installed a basic doorbell camera to record whoever comes and goes. Monday morning, my lawyer called with good news and bad news. Good news: Sarah's request for spousal support was denied. The prenup worked exactly the way it was supposed to, and the judge wasn't impressed with her claim that I was hiding money. Bad news: her lawyer filed for an extension, saying they needed more time to review financial documents. That means more delays and more fees, but my lawyer said it's common in messy divorces. Likely just a stalling tactic, hoping I'll get frustrated and settle. He asked if I wanted to consider mediation or keep going. Reddit, this is where your advice has been priceless. A few months ago, I might have agreed to mediation just to end it quickly, but you've reminded me that giving in to manipulation only breeds more manipulation. I told my lawyer to push through and finish it properly. So that's where things stand. Sarah has moved from fake pregnancies and HR stunts to playing amateur detective and sneaking into the house. Monica is out here cosplaying as a social worker, and I'm learning that divorce unleashes a kind of creativity in people you wouldn't believe. Thanks for keeping me steady through this. Your reminders to expect escalation and not take it personally have helped more than I can explain. Without this community calling things for what they are, I might have talked myself into feeling guilty about Sarah's breakdowns or Monica's harassment.